Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as we're now on the road to 400 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you love sports content, sports talk, anything from sports betting to updated rankings every week, it's all right here on the Talk of the Town podcast. And here on today's video, we're going to be grading some of the best moves at the trade deadline. And then we're also going to be giving some predictions for the Raiders versus Broncos Thursday night football game tonight as well. So let's get right into it with one of the first moves at the trade deadline, one of the most shocking ones, if not the most shocking one. Sauce Gardner getting traded to the Indianapolis Colts. I give Indy a B-, and then I give the Jets just an A. I give Indy a B- because I feel like they gave up a lot for Sauce Gardner. Now, I do feel like there's value they're getting back for Sauce Gardner, though. I do think I did see some grades. Some people graded this an F, a D, a D-. I don't think it's quite that low. I mean, I do give them a B-. Now, I do think for Sauce Gardner, who hasn't necessarily had the best couple of years, I feel like he's been declining every year. I think this year, he's been okay. Last year, people were like, what the hell happened to Sauce Gardner? This year, he's just been okay. I remember one of the quotes I heard about Sauce Gardner was, if they start calling pass interferences on Sauce, it's over for him. Well, they started calling it a lot on him last year when they kind of tweaked the rules a little bit with pass interference. They've definitely, been a lot more flag happy and a lot more contact. And Sauce isn't necessarily the speediest corner. He just is very handsy. He has a lot of contact, and he's very good in terms of playing up to the receiver and making them fight to get the ball. Well, now, especially since pass interference, they kind of tweaked the rules on it a little bit. He gets called a lot more, which in terms it's kind of had to have him change his play. He's not a very good tackler to begin with anyway. I think he's one of the worst tackling corners in football last year, and I think he still is this year. But I just feel like to give up 2 first-round picks and Adonai Mitchell, I feel like there's only 2 corners in the league I'd even consider doing that. I still feel like it might even be a little much. I feel like a first-round pick and Adonai Mitchell, or just 2 first-round picks is enough, would be Christian Gonzalez or Pat Surtain, because when Gonzalez isn't on the field for the Patriots, they have a negative record. They're 6-0 with Christian Gonzalez, so clearly he is a serious difference maker in the backfield for him. And Pat Surtain, former Defensive Player of the Year last year, clearly makes that defense a different unit. I mean, they are just something to be seriously messed with. That Denver defense, and Pat Surtain is like the heart and soul of that defense. And every time you watch them, they just don't even try to throw in his direction. And the same goes with Christian Gonzalez as well. And when they do, those guys make plays. So those are really the only 2 cornerbacks I'd even consider trading maybe 2 first-round picks for, because they clearly are difference makers. Sauce Gardner, I don't think he's ever had a winning season with the Jets. I mean, and the Jets are just dysfunctional. I do give them an A in this trade, because I think they're offloading Sauce's contract, which is nice. And one thing too is this year, I think they only take like a $7 or like a $10 million cap hit. And starting next year is when his contract really kicks in. That's why I kind of bump Indy's grade down a little bit too, is because over the next 3 years, I think it's 20 million, 20 million, or like 23 million, 23 million, and like 20.2 million is his contract over the next 3 years, somewhere around that range. And that's a lot of money to be giving to a corner, especially when you just pay Charvarius Ward, who is on IR, and it does give him a nice boost for the next couple of weeks, especially when he ends up coming back. That's going to be a really good cornerback duo. And I think they're probably going to end up putting Sauce on the number 1 receiver. I mean, that's just the kind of corner he's been. But he gave me a bit of a liability in terms of his tackling, and just his play has declined, from where he was in terms of being an All-Pro his rookie year and stuff like that. He has definitely declined from that. He's not the same player he was then, but he still is a quality cornerback in this league. I just feel like 2 firsts and Adonai Mitchell, I think, well, they spent like a low first-round pick or a high second round, which is basically a first-round pick anyway, on AD Mitchell last year. So that's basically 3 first-round picks they just gave the Jets for Sauce Gardner, and are taking on Sauce's contract now. Again, it feels like a little bit of a desperation move by the Colts. And if they don't even end up making the AFC Championship, this move is going to haunt them in their future. Again, first-round picks are very valuable. Now, the first-round pick probably wouldn't have ended up being too high this year. I mean, they're probably going to pick in the mid to low 20s, maybe even 30s if they do end up making the Super Bowl by chance. But it's going to be a mid 20s pick, probably at best. So, maybe this year, still having that pick would have been nice, but you are getting a proven player in Sauce Gardner, which I say sometimes giving up a first-round pick for a guy who's proven and it's just fantastic is not a bad thing either. And again, I think Sauce is kind of a little bit out of his peak, or at least he's been playing like it. He's still very young. And the Jets are dysfunctional. Sometimes you have to wonder, like, is a guy going to play 100% on an organization that just really is just a mess? And he's already been paid, so it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that Sauce is going out there not trying or anything, but I think now on the Colts, they make a big trade for him. They're not paying his contract. He has something to prove there. I think for the first time in his career, he is on a winning team and has something to legitimately play for. So that's a good thing for him. But Indy, I do give them a B- in terms of feels like a little bit of a desperation move. Which again, you have a winning record. It just feels like a lot for a cornerback who's just doesn't necessarily have that impact on a team. Will he have an impact on this team? I'm sure he will, but I guess we'll have to see how much of an impact he has, because I'm still a little weary there, and it just feels like a lot. Basically, 3 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. And for the Jets, them getting A.D. Mitchell, who was a bit of a project receiver coming out of the draft last year, and 2 first-round draft picks is massive over the next couple of years in terms of the trade I'm going to talk about next as well. Then just adding ammo. I mean, they have a chest of draft picks. So the Jets absolutely get an A here. You're offloading Sauce's contract. You're going to get a chance to reset at that position. And you have plenty of first-round picks to try and replace Sauce Gardner, which I think, they can easily do. Or not easily do, but I think they can absolutely do. Let me just say that. I'll word it a little better. And yeah, man, the Jets get an A there. I think definitely a win there. You get out of his contract and you get a lot of draft picks. So, yeah. Next trade I want to talk about here, Quinnen Williams. I give the Cowboys a B. I have seen the Cowboys get an F on some of them. People have been harsh on this one, and I give the Jets an A- on this one here. The only reason why I rank it a little lower for the Jets here is because I think they're giving up a lot more of a premium player in terms of a pass rusher as well, which I think is a lot more of an impact position, to where, again, if I mentioned I was Indy in the last one too, I feel like you give up that for an elite pass rusher, Max Crosby or something. You give up a couple first-round picks for, I don't know necessarily about a corner. But that's why I feel like with the Cowboys, I feel like one of their positions of need, which I still feel like they need corners, is an elite pass rusher. Now, let me see. I think Quinnen Williams only has, he's 1 sack with just 16 QB pressures this season, which isn't necessarily great. I mean, you traded what? They traded first-round pick and a second-round pick. Again, Mazi Smith, a defensive tackle, which I think they actually spent a pretty decently high pick on a few years ago. That's a lot. But Quinnen Williams playing at his best is absolutely worth it. And I think the thing is, though, is that I actually think it was 2 first-round picks, if I'm not mistaken. Apparently, it's been kind of weird with that trade. Like, I think it depends on which one they get, whether or not it's going to be the Cowboys pick or the lower of the Green Bay pick. So it just says a first-round pick, a second-round draft pick, and Mazi Smith. So that's what I'm going with at this point. I've seen a couple of different ones. For some reason, when it first happened, I seen 2 first-round picks. But yeah, 2027 first, 2026 second, and Mazi Smith. If it is a 2026 first, make sure to let me know. I'll make sure to go. I'll look it up again after this video. But the Cowboys going to be, I think, again, you're getting an elite pass rusher. One of the things I don't necessarily love with that trade for Dallas, though, is I really felt like they could have used a corner and a pass rush with their 2 first-round picks. Now, the only thing you could have hoped is, like, for whoever you drafted to be half as good as Quinnen Williams is. So I guess there's definitely some value. I mean, they got an elite player to try and replace Michael Parsons. Again, he's not Micah Parsons, but he is an elite talent there on the defensive line for Dallas. So I think they definitely get a boost there. Kenny Clark as well, next to him is going to be. They definitely are not going to generate some form of a pass rush. I just still think they have issues in their secondary. So I think they do get a position of need, but they still have needs on their defense, and I still think their defense is going to struggle to an extent as well. Again, I think their secondary gets torched. There's a lot of holes in their secondary, a lot of big plays made on their secondary. I think they're actually last in the league or first in terms of big plays against. They get a lot of big plays on that defense. So, again, they still have issues in their secondary. I would have liked to maybe see them trade for a secondary piece, but Jerry Jones was not lying when he said after that Cardinals game, he already has big plays made. And they definitely went out. They made a bit of a splash. Now, in terms of their future, they definitely gave up a lot of draft capital to get Quinnen Williams, even get Logan Wilson, who I'm not including in this. But, I think he was just, okay, we're going to go all in, kind of sees, there's a chance with Washington going down. The Giants aren't a factor in our division. Like maybe we have a chance of snagging the 7th seed. It's wide open. We definitely need to develop a pass rush, and getting Quinnen Williams is definitely a game changer there in terms of the defensive line there for the Cowboys. So I do give them a B. I could see why if you wanted to rank it a little lower. Absolutely. I was kind of teetering even between a C+ for this trade for the Cowboys, but I really do like Quinnen Williams as a player. And I think even though he necessarily hasn't had the best statistics so far this season, and as I mentioned with Sauce, is like these players really, when you're just playing for a losing franchise, you're being paid, everyone knows you're elite anyway. You're just not necessarily going to go all in. Now it kind of gets a fresh start with the Cowboys. Even though the Cowboys don't have a winning record, it's definitely a fresh start. And definitely feels like more of a win for him than being in the Jets organization. So give the Cowboys a B. Give the Jets an A-. Again, you load up your draft picks. Definitely, you're going all in on the rebuild, and I definitely respect that in terms of loading up your picks. You have just an absolute chest of draft picks. So, again, the Jets load up there. They get an A-. Give them a little bit lower than what I gave them for the Sauce Gardner trade, just due to the fact of, you didn't get quite as much, and I feel like you gave up more of a premium player. But again, you're going all in on the rebuild. I respect it, going in for your future. And if these draft picks turn out to be really good, and you do end up getting a player out of it as well, as the same you did with the Colts, on top of your draft picks, this could absolutely turn out to be in that just one of the best trade deadlines in the entirety of the franchise for the New York Jets. So definitely get an A- there for the Jets as well. So the next trade I want to talk about here is the Seahawks trade for Rashid Shaheed. I give the Seahawks an A+ on this trade here, and I give the Saints an A-. Look, I think Sam Darnold is one of the best deep ball throwers in the league right now. He loves to just let it rip. He did that last year with Minnesota as well when he had Addison and Jefferson. Now, he doesn't quite have that. But having Kupp, Shaheed, and JSN, and even Torrey Horton, one of their, one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL, I feel like he's been fantastic. I think he's a rookie as well. Adding Rashid Shaheed, who is one of the best deep ball threats. I think he averages like 17 yards a catch or something like that. He's one of the best deep threats in the entirety of the NFL. Leaving an organization that's just a mess right now with the Saints, with an absolutely fantastic quarterback. And mind you, Shaheed was doing that with just bad quarterback play. Rattler, Shuck. Last year, he was dealing with Carr and Rattler. They dealt with like a million different quarterbacks. And when he had Derek Carr, who even last year when he was playing was still half decent, he was putting up big time numbers. So he's on pace for over like 1,000 yards this year. I think, them adding that to their arsenal, and Sam Darnold loves throwing his deep ball. He's one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL. Just gives them even more room to play around with their playbook, their offensive scheming, and really just opens up for Sam Darnold to make even bigger plays, which I think, again, when you go against the Rams, when you go against the Eagles, when you go against Tampa and January, and even just climbing up to, I think Seattle's going to be competing for the number 1 seed. When you're trying to compete for that against some of the better teams, and you have to sometimes get a foot race with these teams, playing 1-score games, adding a player like Rashid Shaheed to make explosive plays, whether or not it's touchdowns or big time first downs, it's just a big time plus to add to Sam Darnold's arsenal. And just big-time ammo to add for the Seattle Seahawks in general. And when you play against some of the best teams in the league, which they are in January, and leading up to that, Rashid Shaheed is going to be a big-time playmaker to add next to JSN and even Cooper Kupp and Torrey Horton and those guys down there. So I give the Seahawks an A+. It's a perfect fit for them, I feel like, as well. Not a weird fit. It adds, I think it's just a perfect addition to add next to the receivers they have. And I love it. I think it's just a perfect trade for the Seahawks, and I give them an A+. And I think in terms of what they had to give up, it was just only a 4th and a 5th round pick. You know, again, you only have to hope your 4th and 5th round pick turned out to be even half as good as Rashid Shaheed has been so far in terms of the level he brings of explosive plays, deep balls, and just catching the ball in general. Probably if you drafted a 4th or 5th round pick, whether or not you took a receiver with either one of those picks, hoping they turned out to be even half as good as Rashid Shaheed is something you can only hope for. So I think in terms of what they gave up and what they got back is just perfect for the Seattle Seahawks. I love the fit. For the Saints, though, look, you're kind of rebuilding. You're trying to offload some of these guys. You get a 4th and 5th round pick to add to your draft, which, again, I mentioned with the Saints, one of the most important things for the Saints is their draft coming up. I think they have to nail their drafts. They have to really get some young players because they're in salary cap hell, for one, and they have been for years now. They just need to nail and get some of these young players because that kind of stuff we've seen with the Rams. You know, we've seen where they give up a ton of draft capital. They're paying a ton of guys. When you nail your drafts, even your 5th, your 6th, or 7th, you know, your 3rd round picks, even your 3rd, of course, your 1st and 2nd round picks, which you're going to have a very high pick in, but your 4th and your 5th round picks and stuff like that, you notice how fast your franchise turns around. And I think them loading up on that gives them even more of a chance to hit on these picks. And the Saints absolutely need to hit on their draft picks. So, again, I think them offloading Shaheed, who, again, he benefits them, but I think, you know, they have a lot of holes in their roster, which they know they need to fill. And when you add more picks, you get more of a chance to do so with that. So I do give the Saints an A- in that trade. I do think, you know, them offloading him is a good thing for them. And yeah, man, I give them an A-. Last trade I'm going to talk about here is Jakobi Meyers. I give the Jags a B+ here. I think, again, they have a lot of injuries in the receiving corps. Travis Hunter's out for a while. Brian Thomas Jr. dealing with a knee injury. It's funny because the Raiders just literally played the Jags like a few days ago, and he was even saying he was talking shit to some of the Jags players. And now he's playing with them in the facility with them. So I bet you that's pretty can be kind of awkward there. But I'm sure they're hashing that out just fine. But Las Vegas, I give an A as well. They only gave up they got a 4th and a 6th round pick for Jakobi Meyers, which, again, they're paying Jakobi some money that he clearly didn't want to be there. They wanted to let him go. So I think them offloading him, getting some value back is very good for the Raiders as well. That's why I give them an A. Again, they just kind of get out of it and get some value back as well, which clearly both of the parties just weren't working there between Meyers and the Raiders anymore. So, and I think Meyers is definitely going to get a lot of throws. He's going to get a lot of value in Jacksonville. That's why I give them a B+. But again, I just feel like Jacksonville has kind of some more holes to fill. But I feel like in terms of why I didn't necessarily rank it higher as well is because maybe long-term, I don't know if Jakobi Meyers is going to stay a Jag. The receiving core really isn't an issue. As of this moment, in terms of the injuries, it's an issue for the Jags. But maybe for the long-term, which, again, you want to worry about winning right now. I totally respect that. That's why I still give it a high grade. But for the long-term, I don't know how necessarily well this is going to work out. Jakobi Meyers is going to have a market. They have receivers. They invested in Travis Hunter and BTJ. Some other guys as well. Parker Washington's actually been pretty good for him as well. So I think as of this moment, I think this trade is a good trade. But I think in terms of probably by the end of the season, he probably won't be a Jacksonville Jaguar anymore. He'll probably move on. He's going to have a market. So in terms of the long term, I don't think this is necessarily the best solution. But Trevor Lawrence gets a guy to throw to. In terms of their core has just been completely depleted by injuries. So, yeah, I think Jakobi Meyers here is a really good fit. He didn't even have like a single drop last year, had over 1,000 yards. So he's definitely very productive. I think Lawrence is going to love this guy. In terms of who was it? Hunter Long, I watched in the game last week, just kept dropping pass after pass. And even BTJ, they've had some drop issues in terms of the Jags. Their receiving corps had some drop issues. So I think Trevor Lawrence is going to love having Jakobi Meyers. He's going to target him a lot. He doesn't really ever drop the ball. So I think this is a big-time move for Jacksonville as of the moment. But in terms of the long term, nah, man, I think Jakobi Meyers will be going somewhere else after this season. And the Raiders, again, like I mentioned, both of the parties just kind of weren't feeling it anymore. Jakobi Meyers didn't want to be with Las Vegas, and Las Vegas was just kind of trying to offload him. Ended up getting a 4th and a 6th round pick back. Again, you can get what I think Las Vegas needs defensive depth badly. I think they could use some other receivers as well, but yeah, I think they'll end up getting that sorted out. But I think there's going to be a good bit of free agent receivers coming out, which I think they'll end up signing some there. Las Vegas always makes splashy moves with that. But in terms of getting a 4th and a 6th round pick, I think buff your defense and your offensive line, which is what you need badly. I think these picks will come in handy for Las Vegas in the future. So, yeah, man, give the Jags a B+. Give the Raiders an A. That's it for my grading here in terms of grading some of these trades at the trade deadline. So let's move into the Raiders versus Broncos Thursday Night Football game tonight. Just going to give some of my predictions, and that'll be it for today, man. So I think, speaking of the Raiders, actually, which is funnily enough, I didn't actually mean to move the Raiders in, talk about Jakobi Meyers and the Raiders, and then talk about Raiders-Broncos tonight. But the Raiders in this Broncos game tonight kind of feels like a little bit of a trap game to me. I think a lot of people are just kind of like, hey, Broncos are just going to kind of come in, kick their ass. They just got done trading Jakobi Meyers a couple days ago. And I think they'll just come in and handle their business. Now, is that the most likely scenario? Yes. But this kind of has a bit of a trap game feel to it. And I've been saying for weeks and really the entirety of the season, prime time games this year, there has been a massive amount of upsets. You have Jags Chiefs. You have, I had a million of them on my mind. Patriots Bills. I mean, you can go back and look through their schedule on prime time. I know we had like the Chiefs and Commanders last week. Chiefs obviously ended up winning that pretty handily. But regardless, there has been a lot of upsets on a Thursday Night Football really the entirety of the season. You just go back and you look. So that's why I feel like this has a little bit of a trap game feel. This has a little bit of a Panthers-Packers feel to me a little bit. Like the Raiders are not very good, but they're coming off of a pretty emotional loss against the Jags last week. They went for 2 in overtime. Didn't end up getting it. I think the ball got batted down. If it didn't get batted down, I'm pretty sure it had Tyler Lockett wide open in the back of the end zone. So the Raiders can play. And I'm pretty sure, the Broncos aren't going to have Pat Surtain. I think they did put him on IR, if I'm not mistaken. But the Broncos, their defense is great. I think they are going to get a lot of pressure. Zach Allen was dealing with an injury last week as well. So I don't know his injury status coming into this game. He's probably a little bit banged up. But I think they're going to get a lot of pressure on Geno. He's going to have a hard time getting the ball out. The receiving core isn't necessarily the best, but Brock Bowers is getting healthier. He had a really good touchdown against the Jags last week, like a one-handed snag in the corner of the end zone. It was a really nice touchdown, just a Brock Bowers kind of touchdown. So I don't necessarily think this game's going to be a blowout. Would I take the Broncos to win? Yes, but I would be on watch of an upset alert. And that's what I'm liking about every single primetime game this year. Look out. But for the Broncos, again, if they can win, they pick up a division win, which is going to be massive for them. Again, they get up there. They'll be 8-2 in the AFC West. Yeah, the Chiefs kind of starting to fall behind. The Chargers dealing with a ton of injuries. So them getting this win over a divisional opponent, which is only better for them. In terms of, the Raiders aren't necessarily at all competing for this division, but in terms of getting that division standing and stuff, that's big time. This would be a massive win for the Broncos tonight on primetime Thursday Night Football. So in terms of their standings, moves them up into the number 1 seed momentarily, but Patriots got a tough game this week. I think the Colts have a tough game this week. I forget who do they go against this week. I don't know who the Colts go against this week. Hold on, let me see real quick. Let me see. Colts. For what I remember, I think they do have a tough game. No, they played 9:30 against the Falcons, but the Falcons is not just a walkover win. I think the Falcons could potentially end up winning that game. London's always weird games as well. So the Broncos have a legitimate chance to be the number 1 seed by Sunday. The Patriots have a tough game against Tampa, and the Colts definitely don't necessarily have an easy win against the Falcons either. So It's a big game for the Broncos here. Big chance for them to maybe get a big, not just in their division, but in terms of the standings as well in the AFC. So, yeah, man. So in terms for this game, I'd be on watch for the Raiders, but I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable with the Raiders either. I would definitely take the Broncos in this game. I'm going to say, let's say 28-20 Broncos. I'm going to take to win this game tonight. So, yeah, man, that's it for the video today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Tomorrow we have slips for Sundays, which if you're not familiar here with on the YouTube channel, give you guys my 3 best bets to have for the weekend, the weekend slate of games here. So stay tuned for that. But that's it for today's video. Appreciate y'all for supporting, and take it easy.